So Betty.
So great to be here, by the way. great to see everyone here. I know that these panels have been sort of spread all over the place, so I'm really happy that you guys are here.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, I'm happy to meet you.
And I'm very happy to be with you, Betsy.
And I am really interested in why you decided to take the radical move of starting a company when you've got a pretty good job to start with. Why do this?
I get that question asked a lot, which is, you know, you have a pretty good gig at Bloomberg Television. Why do you even want to torture yourself by being an entrepreneur? Because the lows can be very low, but at the same time, the highs can be extremely high, and they're limitless. And that is part of the appeal of starting a company, of being an entrepreneur, is that you do get this, you have this ability where the sky is the limit, right? I just really always had an entrepreneurial itch. I always knew that I wanted to start something. I think that's partly why I got into journalism, because, you know, to me, there's not too much of a stretch between being a journalist and being an entrepreneur, in a sense. You're just taking basically ideas and turning them into reality. So it's on a much different scale, of course. There's a lot more complexities between writing a story and building a company. But there's that same kind of nature with people, right? You want to take ideas and turn them into reality. So I always did want to start a company. I always had ideas for companies. I actually had several ideas right before the dot-com. At the time was a dot-com boom, and I thought I thought that would be a perfect time to do it, and then it was the bust, and I decided I was going to stay with my job in journalism, and I've loved every moment of it, but that itch kind of never went away, and I needed finally to scratch it.
Terrific. And when you, over the course of the time, now you've been doing these interviews with Bloomberg for 5 years?
Over 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
10 years.
I just celebrated my 10-year anniversary. Woo-hoo.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good.
I joked, I was like, I don't know if I want to cry or like celebrate, you know? I've been there, being somewhere for 10 years. I joined that company, I had no idea that I was going to be there that long, but it's been great.
So 10 years worth of interviews.
Yeah.
Talk about a couple of the people who have been those memorable interviews and maybe how they inspired you to go forward with Radiat.
Absolutely. So I think one time we actually counted, as much as we could, how many interviews I'd done with CEOs, and it was something like 2,500, 3,000 interviews over the course of those 10 years. So I mean, obviously certain people stick out, you know, in pivotal moments of when I sat across from them. There's the Warren Buffetts of the world. There's Elon Musk and Jamie Dimon and Ted Turner and those guys. I remember that, you know, Elon, who you talk to any young person today, I mean, he is the person that lots of people want to emulate, particularly the younger generation. And I remember sitting across from him one time when I was actually writing my book, Work Smarts. This was at a time when he had just come back from saving Tesla from the brink. He had just put out the Model S, had done the Roadster, and that he at least had that proof of concept of the Roadster, but he was working on the Model S, and the Model 3 was a few years down the road, but people were already asking about it. And I said and this was also after his divorce, so that was in the newspapers, it was all this stuff. So he was in this like transition point, and I remember asking him, when I was there writing the book, I said, you know, you must seem like someone who has no fear. You know, Elon, you have no fear at all. And he kind of looked at me funny, and he was like, what are you talking about? And he said, I have a ton of fear. He said, I wake up every morning fearful. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, look, you know, I have a lot of fear, but I turn a lot of that fear into the fear of regret. So he wants to do so many things all at the same time because he's so regretful. He doesn't want to have that fear of regret of him never having done everything he has ever wanted to do in his life. So he said, I really turned that fear into fear of regret. And that was a very big mentoring moment for me, where I thought, you know, I have a lot of fear. I wake up every morning scared shitless. So, you know, I have a ton of fear. And if someone like him can take that fear and turn it into the fear of regret, then I can too. And it became a very big teaching moment for me.
Just push on that for a moment, though. What does it mean to take, I mean, we all do wake up with a certain amount of uncertainty and fear, right? So when you say you can take that fear and turn it into a fear of what you're not going to do, how do you do that? What does that mean?
I think it's different for a lot for everyone, but I think that that fear of regret is, you know, you being able to, and I know it sounds kind of hokey, but like you looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, 5 years from now, do I want to be in this same place? You know, do I want to, you know, would I be happy if 5 years from now I hadn't done the thing I want to do right now that I'm afraid of? So if you do that and you can answer that question honestly, then you'll know that, you know, you've gotten to the point where you're at the fear of regret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I confess that I had a moment like that in starting EdSurge as well, because I did decide to quit my job. And
cheers.
It was, well, you haven't quit yet. You haven't quit yet. But for me, ironically, it was, the moment was being in Scotland, accidentally walking into the cafe where J.K. Rowling wrote the first Harry Potter book.
Oh.
And saying, if she could believe in a story so deeply, a crazy story. Nobody wrote books about wizards, and certainly no one wrote 100-page books about wizards, at a time when she had no job, no husband, a baby. When I would have gone to work in the grocery store, if she could believe in that, could I believe in an idea too?
You know, it's funny, that J.K. Rowling example is an example that I've also, like, embraced throughout my life too. It's not only, so she took that risk, she believed in herself, you know, wrote this book, but there's also the other side of that story where she was rejected, I think, about 1,000 times over. You know.
Maybe not quite 1,000, but a lot.
But she was rejected consistently over and over again. And I think that part of the story too is, look, I mean, you know, you only need one opportunity.
Yeah.
You only need one person to say yes to make a difference. So, you know, everyone who feels, including myself, you know, that you're constantly facing a wall, right, of rejection, you only need that one person, that one client, that one investor, that one person to say yes can change your life.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about, again, the business now of Radiant.
Yeah.
Because what you've done is you're collecting these moments. They're 2-minute clips, right? 2-minute clips from sometimes people that are very famous, Jack Welch, sometimes people who are perhaps less famous. And you're putting those together. What do you think happens when people actually watch these videos? What changes?
Yeah, so let me back up a little bit about what Radiate is, or why I'm so passionate about it. And I'm not trying to sell you guys on Radiate. The idea behind it is
you should want to sell them on Radiate.
No, but it's really more organic than that. So I believe my life has been changed by micro-mentoring moments. So, you know, we talk a lot about, we're at this conference, you're networking, you're trying to make connections, you know, all sorts of, you know, you're doing all of this stuff. And sometimes, you know, in these conversations, you know, you think to yourself, like, is this someone that I can, you know, that can be like my mentor? Right? Or like I'm looking, or, you know, I hear a lot of college graduates who ask me, like, I'm looking for a mentor. And I always think that that's like the wrong way to approach, getting great advice. Like, I think the idea, and, you know, as you saw in that video, of like finding a mentor is so unnatural and also not very beneficial. I think that your life can be changed through micro-mentoring, and I call them micro-mentoring moments. So my life has been changed by many micro-mentoring moments, and they were not always with the Warren Buffetts of the world. Many of those people that changed my life were, quote unquote, no names, or average people, or just people I'd met at the right time who said certain words to me that really transformed my life. So for example, when I was in high school, I'm the child of Tiger parents. They wanted me to be a doctor. In high school, I was set on being pre-med. You know, my dad's a retired doctor. He was like, if you want to succeed in life, you should be a doctor, an accountant, or a lawyer. So I was very set in high school, even though I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do, to be a doctor. So I was pre-med. I went to my guidance counselor's office, Mrs. Conway, who I still remember, red hair and a bun, horn-rimmed glasses. And she looked at my college essay, and it was a college essay about, you know, how I wanted to go into the medical profession. And she looked up at me and she said, you know what? You're a pretty good writer. And it was at those moments, those words said by the right person at the right time. She was absolutely right. She made me realize something that I was lying to myself, she made me realize that I need to be honest about what I wanted to do. That completely changed my life. Went back home, told my dad, I don't want to be pre-med, I want to be a writer. He said, are you what? What is that? And then anyway, it changed my life. So I really believe in these micro-mentoring moments. And I think when you get the right words at the right time, it can just change your life.
So that fits in with a lot of...
And so that's the idea of Radiate. Yeah.
So it fits in with a lot of the ideas that we've heard at this conference around personalizing learning, right?
Yep.
A micro moment. But help me understand, how will I find the right moment for me on Radiant? So you have a couple of hundred, I think, at this point, sort of micro moments already.
We have 1,000 plus videos.
1,000 plus videos. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So how are you going to personalize it for me?
It's a great question. So we have 1,000 plus videos. I call these micro videos. They're 2 minutes or less. And the reason why we made them 2 minutes or less is that everyone has ADD these days, and so nobody can pay attention for longer than 60, 90 seconds. And on this platform, we have these videos that are taught by 100 plus CEOs, so like Jack Welch, Arianna Huffington, Brian Grazer, anybody that you're likely to find somebody on there that you really respect or that you know, or, and that you really want to hear from. And they're categorized into 6 specific categories: time management, hiring and firing people, self-improvement. So you go on there and you say, I'm dealing with an issue, let me search for a video or a topic that can tell me, give me some advice. But I think what's actually even more powerful about the platform, and which I'm trying to get users to do, is to visit it every day. So every day, watch one micro video every morning. It's almost like, by the way, this is the lowest effort. Spend 2 minutes on yourself every day. Like, if you can't do that, then you're in trouble. So spend 2 minutes every morning, watch one of these micro mentoring videos. It may not apply to what is going on in your life right now. Like, you might hear Jack Welch talk about managing difficult people, and maybe you're not in a difficult people situation at the moment. But what I have found myself after watching these videos is that a few months down the line, something will happen, and I'll remember something that Jack Welch said. So to me, it's taking one moment every day, watching these micro-mentoring moments. It'll eventually, over time, you'll find that your critical thinking skills, your motivation is going to improve. So
we're going to come back to that. But when I was exploring Radiant, I happened to notice that Betty hasn't yet put her mentoring moments on there. And so I asked her, okay, we're here at a conference. We're here at probably the biggest networking conference for this industry. Give the people who show up here your 2 minutes of mentoring on how to network, because you're a pretty good networker too.
I'm curious here, just because we're a nice small group, it's intimate, how many of you guys actually like networking? Oh,
interesting.
David doesn't count because he's our director of business development. So that's all. He was a born networker. So I hate networking. It's even though my brand is to network, and I am. People know me. Betty is the networker. Like everyone who. By the way, we all have a brand, right? So we all. Sorry to go on a tangent here, but we all have a brand. So everybody always sees you in a certain way, right? So whenever somebody says, they always say like, so-and-so, great guy, not very organized. Or, she's fantastic at sales, but can't put a spreadsheet together. Like everyone has sort of a brand. So my brand is like, I have a massive network.
So give us the 2 minutes of networking tips.
Yeah, so I'm getting to that. So in any case, so number one is your brand, right? So your brand is very key to your networking. So in terms of a micro mentoring moment of networking, because again, I hate the whole networking idea. So number one is to go into any situation, whether it's like, a conference or a small dinner or an event. Don't give yourself such a big task of having to network with the whole room. So I used to make the mistake that I would go into a conference or I would go into, into some sort of event, and I would feel like I needed to collect as many business cards as possible in order to succeed as a networker. That is the wrong way to go about it. So the right way to go about it is to really find a deep connection with 1, 2, or 3 people making a deeper connection with a few people, a handful of people at any networking event is far more valuable than going into an event trying to collect as many business cards as possible. Now, the second thing I would say, and that relates to the brand, is that you need to leave people with the impression of, that people need to remember who you are. You know, like, here at this conference, there's so many great people, but it almost becomes like noise, you know, like everyone is sort of the same. I mean, everyone has got a great company, everyone's got, you know, everyone has like a great idea, and they're all very, you know, they're all in great positions. So you gotta find a way to really be memorable to that person. And it's not being memorable like, and sometimes it can be, but oftentimes it's not about your title, or it's not about like the company that you're with. It's more about finding a way to be memorable on a more personal or deeper level. So find something that you can connect to that person with, whether it's you both went to the same school, or, you know, I often use the fact that I have twin boys, 13-year-old twin boys, which I didn't know was memorable, but I guess is memorable. But whenever I mention twins, everyone has a twin story. Everyone tells me either like their sister's a twin, you know, or their sister has twins, or this, or I've always wanted a twin, or I don't know what it is. But whenever I tell people that, it forms a deeper connection than if I were just to tell people, hi, I'm Betty Liu, Bloomberg anchor, and, you know, founder and CEO of Radiat. Like, that doesn't mean anything as much as saying, as giving a little piece of information like that. So if you can think of things that like kind of make you unique or are a little bit more memorable and form that connection, that will help break the ice and create a much better communication with that person.
And coming back to your brand point.
That was probably longer than 2 minutes.
We'll work on the 2 minutes part. And coming back to your brand point, should that information that you're sharing about yourself, should that be connected to your brand?
That's a good question. I don't know if it needs to be connected to your brand, but it should stay consistent with it.
Consistent with
Yeah,
it.
so it should stay, you know, you have to figure out what your personal brand is, and then think of things that are unique about you that is consistent with your brand. You know, I mean, I think we all want to think of ourselves as a premium brand, or if you're a brand about solving problems, or if you're a brand about networking or communicate. Like, you always want to have something that really kind of is consistent with it.
Great.
Yeah.
So, what scares you the most about starting this company?
Other than failing, I would say, what scares me the most? That's a great question. I
mean, failure doesn't necessarily have to be scary.
No, I actually am not scared. I mean, I'm not scared about that, only because I really believe in what we're doing, and that there's always going to be solutions to what we're looking, to challenges that we're facing. In terms of being scared, what I always struggle with is focus. That's always what I think that as entrepreneurs, as people building companies, and you've got great ideas, every entrepreneur has about 5, 10 different ideas a day. Mm-hmm. You know, every day, you're constantly got ideas. Oh my God, that's a great idea. This could be really great. That could be really great. And you have to kind of like, you have to check yourself and make sure you're always constantly comparing your ideas to your mission, right? And that you constantly keep that focus. So I think, like, for me, the struggle I've had for the last year and a half is always trying to contain my enthusiasm for ideas all the time, and wanting to try this and try that, and say, like, let's continue and stay focused on the mission.
I think that's a great point for entrepreneurs. Focus is probably the hardest thing. Just to push on that a little bit, can you give us one example of something that you've chosen not to do with Radiant?
There have probably been quite a few things that we haven't done. I think early on, when I was looking at building this content library, a lot of people had said to me, like, a very easy way for us to monetize this was to sell ads, do advertising, and that we could try both. We could try subscription. So, Radiat is a subscription service, and I think it's been always a constant push from the outside. People pitching us, well, if you could do sponsored content, you could, you can sell ads or sponsorships on your content. And I always have said that I want to keep this content clean, and I want it to keep it organic. I mean, I'm not saying sponsored content is unclean, but for us, it's very important for me that this stays organic, purposeful, micro-mentoring moments that are not servicing anybody else but the consumer and the customer.
Great. One more question. One of the things that's been amazing to me to see over the last really 6-7 years that I've been coming to GSV has been the real focus that this community has had on including women, on including people of color, and not just including them, but really elevating their voices. Talk about what Radiant can do, both from the point of view of people who are the mentors and from the point of view of people who will be your consumers, to really support diversity of voices.
So, we're all about the diversity of voices. So, and it's not just diversity of color or ethnicity.
Right.
It's diversity of opinion. We want to make sure that, so we have 160 topics on Radiate, spanning anything from leadership to management. But we made a very specific decision at the very beginning that we were not going to give our opinion on what good leadership or management was going to be. We were going to let other people give their opinions. So we have, for instance, for certain topics, or for all of our topics, we'll have sometimes 10, 15 different views. And sometimes those views will conflict with each other on how to fire someone, for instance, or how do you manage difficult people. We'll have conflicting views. And it just speaks to me that there are many solutions to a problem, that not every solution fits every, that there's not only one way to do anything, and that you should pick the one that resonates most with you and with your situation. So we want to make sure that we have that diversity.
That's fantastic.
On the platform.
Great.
Yeah.
So if that's what you're looking for, a diversity of points of view and of these micro-mentoring moments, take a look at Radiant. And I think you had an offer for these folks?
Yes. So if anybody would like to check out these micro-mentoring moments, like I said, we have about 1,000 of these videos in our library, and we have 1,000 more coming in the next 12 months. So people like Brian Grazer, Michael Dell is joining us, Adam Grant is also, as we speak, doing an interview with us. So we have basically every big name CEO that you would want, we have on that platform. So we're offering that for $29 a month just for GSV. It's normally $55 a month for this service, because it's more than just content. It's mentoring. It's executive coaching, in my view. So it's $29 a month. And that also gives you access to Radiate Live events. So those are events that I host where I speak about a topic like networking or building your personal brand, and at the same time, I'll host live sessions with our Radiate experts. So let's say you watch Kat Cole or Ariana Huffington, like we might have a live session with her in the coming months where she'll sit down and answer questions for like 15, 20 minutes.
Fantastic.
Because a lot of times people watch these mentoring moments and then they say, wait a minute, I have like even more questions about myself. Like I want to, but I'm dealing with this specific situation. I want to know the answer to this. And so that's why we put the live events as well.
Terrific.
So yeah.
Betty, thank you so much, and thank you. Please join me.
Thank you, guys.
Betty.
Thank you.